Today I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step guide to build my new simple favorite early game base design. There's a lot of flexibility in how you make this, but I'd recommend you get yourself 3,600 cobblestone to build this version you're seeing, which is not particularly hard to get, I think. But if you want to get a lot more XP from the build, I would recommend also getting 3,600 wood and upgrading from wooden frames to cobblestone blocks. But in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to do it straight with cobblestone blocks, which you can craft in your inventory out of cobblestone. It takes about 360 blocks. Additionally, I'd recommend getting yourself 80 to 100 wooden spikes if you want to make this base more effective, but it's not strictly necessary for the forest horde anyway, but that would be an additional 2,000 wood. Anyway, with the resources out of the way, let's jump into the step-by-step guide. Alright, so you're going to want, of course, a flat area to build your base in, ideally in the forest biome if you want the easiest time, but if you want the best loot, build it in a harder biome, of course. What we're going to start by doing is building a 3x3x8 or 9 pillar, and it'll be 9 if you want to dig it one block down. So the reason you might want to dig it one block down is just so that it's a little bit more secure against explosions and weird instances of the zombies digging. It's not strictly necessary, but it's just something I've always done. But you can save a little bit of materials and not do that, and you'll probably be fine. But if you are digging it one down, then you'll need 9 layers, 9 starting from the ground layer here. So as I said, you want 3x3 for your start. Then from this one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, be warned, if you do this, you might break your leg. So I would recommend making a ladder or a little wooden scaffolding. I'm just doing it like that because I'm obviously in a fake world here, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, you should think about your way down if you're going to do it that way, which is as simple as just making a little wooden pillar to stand on. Another thing to note is you should probably make this middle bit as strong as you can initially, because it's going to be harder to access later on, because we're going to be entombing it in more blocks. So let's just fill this whole thing out. And the reason we're using so much material on this is just so that we can be very sure the underside of this base isn't going to get undermined early on in the game. And the height you choose here is actually up to you again. I think this is a good height to balance sort of zombies taking a while to get to you and materials not being used. You can go up as high as like 13 or 14 blocks if you really want this base to be perfect, but that's a lot more expensive because this is such a thick piece of cobblestone. So what we're going to take next is scaffolding ladders, and hold your reload button. I don't necessarily know how it works on console, but I think it is just your reload button. Take scaffolding ladders and orient them just so that they're flat like this. Come along to the edge. Anything like that is fine, and we want to put a layer of these around the outside, which requires some very careful maneuvering, but it should be fine. And then we're going to copy one of these middle blocks, and we're going to start a layer of normal blocks around here. Now, the reason we're using scaffolding ladders is so that during the night when you're fighting at your fighting position here, you can look down and you can assess what's going on with the zombies underneath you. Like if they're for some reason getting a little bit weird and deciding to like dig right through the middle of this because something has gone wrong, you'll be able to see that and shoot down at them. I think that's a really useful feature for bases that are so reliant on a single pillar like that. We're just going to put a whole layer here around. There we go. All right, so now you'll want to get down in some way. What I would recommend, and I forgot to give myself wood to do this, so I'm just gonna spawn myself some in. I know I'm horrible. I'm just gonna make a few basic frames here. I would recommend putting yourself a little ladder at the back of your base here with just wooden frames. This part doesn't need to be made out of any particularly strong material, so we're gonna take scaffolding ladders and just place them like that, and you'll probably fall. Yeah. And what we want is a way up into this. Now make sure you don't do what I'm about to show you here. Don't do this, because then zombies can climb up to you. Make sure there's like a few blocks off the ground, and then what I'd recommend doing is line this up like so with like 3 blocks like that, and then you can just jump onto your base. And zombies typically aren't really going to be able to do that mental equation there. They're just not capable of it. They might attack this little stump thing here during the night because they like to get caught on things. I wouldn't stress about it too much. You can just replace it quite cheaply. It doesn't need to be a strong material, just something that you can use to get on here during the night. And if you've got a broken leg, make sure you maybe give yourself a little bit of aid with more frames. So now we can get up and down from here relatively safely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move 4 blocks away from this pillar here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one. And we're going to dig a hole. Again, you don't have to go 1 down if you don't want to, but I'm just doing it for security. And then we want to go 4 along again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one. Place in another block, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 again. Place another hole. You can extend this out further if you would like, but I don't know the precise limit to when the zombies stop being able to path up to there, so be careful with that. But you can definitely go a few more layers of this. So what you're going to want to do next is build these up to the same height as this, so it should be 8 from the ground up. And for the sake of ease, we're going to fill these in as we go, so that we can then do this in a survival way, so that you can copy the base building process, of course, because I could just be flying around, but that would be difficult for you to copy. So you can see how I'm doing this with just conventional movement. There we go. So we have our bridge, we have our pillar we're going to be standing on, and now we're going to want to make a staircase for the zombies to go up. And basically that's going to come down to essentially just a little bit of a process of building a staircase. So 1 there, and then 2, and then 3, then 4. Keep an eye on your stability as you're doing this. 5, because obviously this might be structurally concerning. And what I'm going to do under here again is I'm just going to make sure mine's is 1 lower into the ground, an optional step, but I prefer it. And then fill this in. Basically this should just form a basic staircase up to there. I'll fill this in because that obviously is dangerous and looks weird. There we go. And what you'll want to use here, if you want this to be a proper staircase, because you don't ideally want the zombies to be jumping up the staircase like this, because it kind of pisses them off and gets them stuck. Instead, you want to get stairs, and various stairs will do, but I use stairs filled, and that is the wrong rotation. There we go. Just fill these in like a staircase. There we go. Pretty simple. And then what I would recommend as well is... see, my terrain's a little bit funky here. You might notice this sometimes in 7 Days to Die. The terrain gets a little bit weird and it doesn't actually go up to the top of a block, which we're seeing here. It's not the biggest of deals because it will just pull up underneath it. So if we just place these on here and then use the stairs-filled corners, like so, the zombies shouldn't have any particular difficulty figuring this out. The reason we're placing these stair blocks here is to assist the zombies in getting up the stairs, because again, if they get caught, they kind of get annoyed and they start punching the stairs, and that's against what you want. So there's your basic frame for the fighting position in the bridge. What we need next is the actual fighting position. So we want to come up here and we want to get scaffolding ladders again, and we want to place 1 like this and 1 like this. Then we want to get pole doubles, which you may have to deselect this to see. Pole double. And we want to rotate it just so that it is horizontal, like that would do. So we need 1 on the inside. We'll need a different rotation from the 1 on the outside, of course. So there we go. And then 1, oh, ow. And 1 on the outside like that. What I would recommend as well is getting some plates, the thinnest plates, these ones, doing some on face like that and placing those under there, just because that is a little bit shaky with those being unsupported from below. So this is the basic fighting position, but of course we will need a little bit more reinforcement than that, because the zombies are very persistent. So we're going to build a little frame around this with our regular blocks, and I'm going to go to the other side for this next step and just use some frames there to get on here. And then we're going to make it 2 tall, because you don't want it to be 1 tall, because zombies can very easily pillar themselves over a 1 block tall. So this is your fighting position. You stand here and you swing your melee weapons and you shoot your guns. You may notice a dip as you go over this scaffolding ladder. If that annoys you, place trapdoors here and you won't notice the difference. There we go. We've got the basic fighting position, and this would work for a Day 7 Horde just as it is. But I would recommend, if you plan on taking this any further than the Day 7 Horde, that you build a little bit of a framework around yourself so that vultures and cops don't like spit directly at you and attack you. And this is like the most materially inefficient part. You also want to put a pillar in the middle here if you're going to be doing this to help support your roof. And make sure you leave a door hole at the back. So I'm just going to fill this out with all the blocks. It's just a room. You understand square rooms, right? Just be very careful of your stability. If you see this starting to go yellow, which mine might be, it means you need to reinforce from the central pillar. Again, it just needs a little bit more support. Yeah, mine has gone back to not being that. So then what we need here is some scaffolding ladders. And we want to place these in these. Oh, that's annoying. Ugh, I don't have a tool to fix that right now, but yeah, that one's just going to be the wrong direction. It's whatever. As I was saying, you need these to fight the vultures. You can just put spikes on your roof if you prefer, but I like to be able to see the vultures. Now you'll see I'm getting a little bit of yellowiness there. If you're still seeing yellowiness, what you want to do is take plates. And it's worth noting, if you upgrade this base to concrete at all, it won't matter. But if you take some plates, these provide the exact same structural support as a full block, but they take up a lot less space. So you can do this and that'll make your yellow supports go away, and it'll support the rest of this, because this is quite a heavy base in the sense that it is much wider at the top than it is around the bottom. And you can use that plate thing as well on the outside here. Plates have the exact same health as blocks, they just take up a lot less space, but you can't build on this block. What this can be used for is to armor up your base essentially. You see I can put like a layer around this, and it will also support the rest of the base, just the same as if it was full blocks, but allows you a little bit more creative freedom visually, and it allows you to get more movement space. And you could even do the same with the interior walls of here. If you didn't want to do full blocks, you could replace them with plates and have more movement. So one other thing you could do, and I actually am going to do it because one, this is annoying me, and two, it is just a really good idea. If we break out this, obviously you shouldn't place it in the first place, but you know what I mean. The first time I ever used this base, I had a different fighting position and it failed. And one thing that actually saved me was having a ladder onto the roof. So just do something like that. Zombies will struggle to get that, and you can stand up here and shoot down into your own base if the zombies breach the front wall here, which is the other reason we would want these scaffolding ladders here. It's an extra layer of defense for you. If everything goes wrong at the front, you can then start fighting the zombies from up here down into your own base. And that did work for me on the first test I made of this base that had a bad fighting position. This one has never broke on me though. This one's good. Additionally, wouldn't hurt to put a door on the back just in case cops or spider zombies see you, which means they can start trying to spit on you and stuff. And the last thing you should do, and this is optional but very much encouraged if you want to reduce the amount of cobblestone you waste during Horde night, you want to get some spikes and place a couple layers around basically all of the pillars on your base. What this will do is if the zombies fall, they will go into a rage mode and the spikes will knock them out of it and they will just play normally. What rage mode does is make them attack things around them for a little bit, and it's meant to stop you from building tall bases like this one. However, if you build a really tall base, they also won't go into rage mode at all. So that's another thing to consider, that you could make this like 20 blocks tall, but that's a lot of extra materials for a very dense base design as it is. But yeah, these like 100 or so spikes you can definitely pass on. It's just for peace of mind that you're probably not going to be getting your base destroyed. So the zombies will come up here, run up to this position and fight you. Another thing you could do with a few extra blocks here is do a bit of this and then take a bevel, cube corner beveled, sorry, and do this. This is going to stop the zombies from piling up on each other as effectively, meaning they're less likely to overrun the top. And an additional thing you could do, by the way, is take your plates that you used here, just copy that rotation, and you could pad up the walls a little bit more if you were concerned about the zombies breaking through them. It's not likely though. You can get away with this. So this is about 350 blocks, which means you will need 3,500 of the material you need to get, which is not difficult at all, but it isn't the cheapest base design in existence, but you can get away with this one. This base has been tested on a pretty high level day 7 Horde, and it works pretty effectively. I used an upgraded version of it all the way through one of my series. I upgraded it to steel and it was able to handle demolition zombies, though I would always recommend you go for a bigger, beefier base design when you're dealing with demolition zombies, because they will punish you for any mistakes you make shooting that button. But yeah, with that, your 350 block horde base here should be able to handle the first few hordes nice and easy. And you've seen, and it doesn't take a very long time to build. It doesn't require a huge amount of resources, 3,500 of whatever resource you actually want to build it out of, and it's a very reliable base design. When you're actually fighting on Horde night, make sure that you look down here. If you're not seeing zombies come along here, you'll be able to diagnose, like, are they getting stuck on anything back here? You can see the whole base design from there, and you can even look down there and see what's going on there. So you don't have a lot of blind spots on this base, which makes it very easy to diagnose if something's wrong, which is very, very helpful. So hopefully this base will serve you well for the first few Horde nights. I used this base basically as is for the first couple of Horde nights and then upgraded it to concrete, and then by about the day 28 Horde I added a little bit of steel, and by the day 42 Horde it was fully steel, and I had padded it up with a few extra layers of blocks in some places. It is a very easy and intuitive base to upgrade. upgrade, basically just add more armor to the pillars and the bridge, though late game I'd always recommend making something bigger with more redundancies and more resistance to being destroyed by demolition zombies, but it should serve you very well for the first 5 or 6 Horde nights of 7 Days to Die. If you want more 7 Days to Die content, check the video popping up on screen right now where I go over the worst perks in 7 Days to Die. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.